House-sitting. It sounds like a dream job, doesn't it? A chance to live in someone else's beautiful home, often in a picturesque location, enjoying a change of scenery and a break from your own routine. For many, it's a way to travel cheaply, to experience new places, or simply to enjoy a quiet, solitary retreat. But beneath the veneer of domestic bliss, there's a vulnerability inherent in house-sitting. You're in someone else's space, surrounded by their possessions, their memories, their secrets. And sometimes, those secrets are far darker than you could ever imagine. These aren't just tales of creaky floorboards or strange noises in the night. These are accounts from individuals who, while caring for someone else's home, found themselves trapped in a nightmare that was all too real. They are real, and they happened because they were just trying to do a favor. Story 1. The Unseen Tenant. This first story comes from a young woman named Chloe, a freelance graphic designer who took on a house-sitting gig in a charming, older home in rural Vermont during the winter of 2018. The owners, an elderly couple, were going on an extended cruise, and Chloe was looking forward to the quiet solitude, the chance to focus on her work without distractions. The house was beautiful, filled with antique furniture and a comforting, lived-in feel. The only instruction from the owners was to feed their cat, Mittens, and to keep the plants watered. They also mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that the house had a few quirks, but assured her they were nothing to worry about. Chloe settled in, enjoying the peace. Mittens was a friendly, affectionate cat, and the house was warm and cozy. The first few days were uneventful. She worked on her laptop in the sunroom, cooked simple meals, and enjoyed long walks in the snow-covered woods surrounding the property. The only quirk she noticed was a faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound that seemed to come from the walls, usually late at night. She dismissed it as mice, or perhaps the old house settling. Then, things started to shift. Small objects would move. A book she'd left on the coffee table would be on a different shelf. A teacup she'd used would be washed and put away, even though she distinctly remembered leaving it in the sink. She initially blamed Mittens, but the cat was often asleep in her lap when these things happened. The scratching in the walls grew louder, more insistent, sometimes accompanied by a faint, rhythmic thumping, like something dragging itself across the floorboards above her head, even though the house had no upstairs. The air in the house would occasionally grow heavy, thick with an unseen presence, and a faint, clawing scent, like damp earth and something vaguely metallic, would waft through the rooms, only to vanish as quickly as it appeared. Chloe started to feel a profound sense of unease. She was alone in the house, miles from the nearest neighbor, and the quiet solitude she had craved was now replaced by a chilling sense of being watched. She began to check the locks obsessively, double-checking windows, even though she knew they were secure. The house, once comforting, now felt oppressive, its antique charm replaced by a sinister atmosphere. She tried to call the owners, but they were unreachable on their cruise. She started to document the strange occurrences, taking pictures of misplaced objects, recording the scratching sounds on her phone, a desperate attempt to prove to herself that she wasn't losing her mind. One afternoon, while working in the sunroom, she saw a flicker of movement outside the window. She looked up, expecting to see a deer or a squirrel, but there was nothing there. Just the snow-covered woods, silent and still. But then, she saw it. A single set of footprints in the snow, leading from the edge of the woods to the house, stopping just short of the sunroom window. They were small, almost childlike footprints, but they were bare footprints in the deep snow. Chloe's blood ran cold. She watched the footprints for what felt like an eternity, but no one appeared. She eventually mustered the courage to go outside and investigate. The footprints were there, clear as day, but they simply stopped. There were no tracks leading away from the house, no sign of anyone having turned back. It was as if the person who had made them had simply vanished into thin air. The climax of her ordeal occurred one night when she was woken by a loud crash from the kitchen. She grabbed a heavy flashlight, her heart pounding, and crept downstairs. The kitchen was a mess. Drawers were pulled open, pots and pans were scattered across the floor, and the refrigerator door was ajar. Mittens, the cat, was nowhere to be seen. Chloe's breath hitched in her throat. This wasn't mice. This wasn't the house settling. Someone or something was in the house with her. She heard a faint scuttling sound coming from the pantry. She slowly approached the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. She yanked it open, shining the flashlight inside. The pantry was empty, but on the back wall, scrawled in what looked like dried mud, was a single, crude drawing. It was a stick figure, a child, with disproportionately long limbs, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and its eyes, two dark, empty circles, staring directly at her. And beneath the drawing, a single word, mine. Chloe screamed, a raw, primal sound of terror. She dropped the flashlight and ran, not bothering to grab her keys or her phone. She burst out of the front door, into the cold winter night, and didn't stop running until she reached the nearest main road, where she flagged down a bewildered passing motorist. The police were called. They found no signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow, and no evidence of anyone else in the house. The drawing in the pantry was dismissed as a child's prank, perhaps from a previous visitor. Mittens, the cat, was found hiding under the bed, terrified but unharmed. Chloe never house-sat again. She still has nightmares about the drawing, about the feeling of being watched, about the faint scratching in the walls. She never found out who or what the unseen tenant was, but she knows, with a chilling certainty, that some houses hold secrets and some presences don't need a physical form to make their existence terrifyingly clear. And sometimes when you're alone in someone else's home, you're not as alone as you think. Story 2. The Perfect Family's Dark Secret. This next chilling account comes from a young man named Ben, a university student who took on a house-sitting job for what appeared to be the perfect family. The Millers lived in a sprawling, modern home in a secluded, affluent neighborhood, surrounded by manicured lawns and towering oak trees. They were a picture of suburban bliss, a successful businessman father, a charming, elegant mother, and two seemingly well-adjusted teenage children. Ben was hired to look after their home and their prize-winning show dog, a meticulously groomed golden retriever named Champ, while they were on a month-long European vacation. This incident occurred during the second week of his stay, when the veneer of perfection began to crack. Ben settled into the luxurious routine. The house was immaculate, almost sterile, with every object seemingly in its designated place. Champ was a docile, well-behaved dog, requiring little more than regular feeding and walks. Ben spent his days studying, working out in the home gym, and enjoying the peace and quiet. The only oddity he noticed was the sheer number of family photos displayed throughout the house. Every wall, every shelf, every surface seemed to be adorned with smiling portraits of the Millers at various ages, in various settings. It was almost overwhelming, a shrine to their own perfection. One evening, while the Millers were away, Ben was watching TV in the living room when he heard a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from upstairs. He paused the TV, listening intently. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like someone was gently tapping a fingernail against a hard surface. He assumed it was Champ, perhaps playing with a toy, but the sound was too precise, too deliberate. He went upstairs to investigate. The tapping led him to the master bedroom, the door of which was slightly ajar. He pushed it open and looked inside. The room was dark, but he could still hear the tapping. It was coming from the large, ornate dresser against the far wall. He approached cautiously, his heart beginning to pound. The tapping was coming from inside the top drawer. He slowly pulled it open. Inside, nestled amongst neatly folded clothes, was a small antique music box. It was open, and a tiny ballerina figurine was slowly spinning, tapping against the inside of the lid with each rotation. Ben frowned. He hadn't seen this music box before. He picked it up, closed the lid, and the tapping stopped. He placed it back in the drawer, closed it, and went back downstairs, dismissing it as another oddity. But the tapping returned the next night and the night after that. Always from the master bedroom, always from the top dresser drawer, and each time the music box would be open, the ballerina tapping. Ben started to feel a profound sense of unease. The house, once a symbol of perfection, now felt like a carefully constructed facade, hiding something unsettling beneath. He started to notice subtle details in the family photos. A flicker of something unsettling in the mother's eyes, a forced smile on the father's face, a strange rigidity in the children's postures. He began to feel that the perfection was too perfect, almost artificial. He started to feel a constant, low hum of anxiety, a feeling of being watched even when he was alone in the vast, empty house. One afternoon, he was exploring the house, a morbid curiosity driving him. He found a locked door at the end of the upstairs hallway. It was the only locked door in the house. He tried the handle, but it was solid. He felt a strange pull towards the door, a sense that something important was behind it. He eventually found a small, ornate key hidden in a book on the bookshelf. He tried it on the locked door, and it clicked open. The room was a child's bedroom, but it was unlike any other room in the house. It was dark, the windows boarded up, and the walls were covered in strange, disturbing drawings, similar to the one Chloe had seen in the pantry. Stick figures with elongated limbs, screaming faces, and dark, empty eyes. In the center of the room was a small, empty bed, and on the floor, a single, worn-out teddy bear. A profound sense of sadness and despair filled the room, a stark contrast to the pristine perfection of the rest of the house. Ben quickly locked the door, his heart pounding, a chilling realization dawning on him. The Millers didn't have 2 children. They had 3. The climax of his stay occurred during the final week. He was woken in the middle of the night by a cacophony of sounds coming from the master bedroom. Loud thumping, crashing, and what sounded like muffled screams. He grabbed a baseball bat he'd found in the garage and crept upstairs. The master bedroom door was wide open. He peered inside. The room was in utter chaos. Furniture was overturned, lamps shattered, and the contents of the dresser drawers were strewn across the floor. The music box lay open, its ballerina spinning wildly, tapping furiously against the lid, the sound now deafening. And in the center of the room, Champ, the docile golden retriever, was barking furiously at something unseen, his fur bristling, his teeth bared, a primal fear in his eyes. Ben's eyes scanned the room, searching for an intruder. He saw nothing, but then he noticed the family photos. Every single one of them had been ripped from their frames, torn into tiny pieces, and scattered across the floor, and on the wall, where the largest family portrait had hung, was a single, crudely drawn symbol etched into the plaster. It looked like a distorted, screaming face, its eyes wide with terror. And beneath it, scrawled in what looked like blood, was a single word: help. Ben dropped the bat and ran. He grabbed Champ, who was still barking hysterically, and burst out of the house, into the night. He didn't stop until he reached the nearest town, where he found a payphone and called the police. They arrived at the Millers' house to find it in disarray, just as Ben had described. But there was no sign of forced entry, no fingerprints, and no explanation for the destruction. The symbol on the wall was dismissed as vandalism, and the blood, which was quickly cleaned, was attributed to a nosebleed. Champ, the dog, was traumatized, refusing to enter the house again. When the Millers returned from their vacation, they were surprisingly calm about the damage. They thanked Ben for his service, paid him, and dismissed the incident as a strange anomaly. They even seemed to find the destroyed photos amusing. Ben, however, never forgot. he never house-sat again. He still wonders what kind of dark secret the perfect family was hiding, what kind of entity resided within their pristine home. And sometimes, when he sees a perfectly manicured lawn or a smiling family portrait, he feels a chill, a lingering sense of dread, and he knows that some perfection is just a facade, hiding a horror that's far more disturbing than any broken furniture or scratched walls. He knows that some houses are not just homes, they are prisons, and the perfect family might not be living the dream, but living a nightmare. Story 3. The Babysitter's Last Night. Our final and perhaps most chilling account comes from a police report filed in a quiet suburban town in the summer of 2015. It details the disappearance of a young woman named Sarah, a responsible and well-liked college student who was house-sitting and babysitting for the wealthy Peterson family. The Petersons were away on a business trip, and Sarah was looking after their 2 young children, 7-year-old Lily and 5-year-old Tom, in their sprawling, isolated mansion on the outskirts of town. This incident occurred on Sarah's last night at the house, just hours before the Petersons were due to return. Sarah had put the children to bed around 9 p.m. Lily, a sweet but imaginative child, had complained about a man in the window earlier that evening, but Sarah had dismissed it as a nightmare. Tom, as usual, was fast asleep. Sarah settled down in the living room, watching a movie, enjoying the quiet. The house was large, and the silence often felt oppressive, but Sarah was used to it. She had house-sat for the Petersons many times before. Around midnight, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the children's playroom, which was located on the ground floor, just off the living room. It was a rhythmic, almost deliberate sound, like fingernails dragging across wood. Sarah paused the movie, listening intently. The scratching continued, soft but persistent. She grabbed her phone, turning on the flashlight, and cautiously approached the playroom door. She pushed it open, shining the light inside. The room was dark, filled with toys and games. Nothing seemed out of place. The scratching stopped. She was about to turn away when she heard a soft giggle. It came from under the large play tent in the corner of the room. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. She knew the children were asleep upstairs. She called out, "Lily! Tom, is that you?" Silence. She slowly approached the tent, her hand trembling as she reached for the flap. She pulled it open, shining the light inside. The tent was empty, but on the floor, amidst a pile of colorful building blocks, was a single, small, wooden doll. It was crudely carved, with no discernible features, just a smooth, featureless head and body. It wasn't one of the Peterson children's toys. Sarah had never seen it before. She picked up the doll. It felt cold, unnaturally cold, to the touch. As she held it, she heard the giggle again, closer this time, right behind her. She spun around, but there was nothing there. The air grew heavy, and a profound sense of dread washed over her. She felt a cold breath on her neck, and then a sharp, stinging pain on her arm. She dropped the doll, crying out, and looked down. 3 distinct, thin red lines appeared on her forearm, as if someone had raked their fingernails across her skin. They weren't deep, but they burned. Sarah ran. She didn't know where she was going, just away from the doll, away from the house. She ran upstairs, checked on the children. They were still asleep, undisturbed. She grabbed her car keys and her purse and burst out of the front door into the cool night air. She fumbled with the car door, her hands shaking, and finally managed to get inside. She started the engine, put the car in reverse, and sped down the long driveway, not looking back. She drove straight to the police station, her story a frantic, incoherent jumble of dolls, scratches, and giggles. The police were skeptical, but they sent an officer to the Peterson house to investigate. They found nothing amiss. The playroom was tidy, the wooden doll was gone, and the children were sound asleep. The Peterson family, contacted on their vacation, confirmed that they had no such doll. Sarah's scratches were dismissed as self-inflicted, a result of her agitated state. Sarah was eventually released, her story deemed a hallucination brought on by stress. She never babysat again. She still has nightmares about the wooden doll, about the cold touch and the chilling giggle. She never found out what happened to the doll or what it was. But sometimes, when she's alone, she feels a faint itching on her forearm, and she knows, with a chilling certainty, that some incidents leave scars that no one else can see, and some horrors follow you home, even when you think you've escaped. The Peterson house was eventually sold, the new owners unaware of the unsettling history within its walls. But sometimes, late at night, a faint, childlike giggle can still be heard echoing from the playroom, a reminder of the babysitter's last night. Conclusion. These three accounts, drawn from the chilling realities of house-sitting, serve as a stark reminder that even in the most seemingly idyllic settings, darkness can lurk. Each story, unique in its manifestation, shares a common thread: the profound and lasting impact of encountering true, inexplicable horror within the confines of someone else's home. The house-sitter, often seen as a temporary caretaker, becomes an unwitting witness and sometimes a victim to the unsettling secrets that homes can hold. Chloe, the graphic designer, learned that some houses are not merely structures of wood and brick, but entities with their own unseen inhabitants, their own malevolent wills. Her experience with the unseen tenant shattered her sense of security, leaving her with a lingering paranoia that no amount of distance could erase. Ben, the university student, discovered that the veneer of perfection can hide a profound darkness, and that the seemingly ideal family might be concealing a truth far more disturbing than any broken furniture. His encounter with the perfect family's dark secret left him with a chilling understanding that some homes are not sanctuaries, but prisons of the mind. And Sarah, the babysitter, paid the ultimate price for her trust, her disappearance a grim testament to the insidious nature of evil that can hide in plain sight even in the innocent guise of a child's toy. Her story, unresolved and terrifying, serves as a chilling warning to anyone who dares to step into the role of caretaker, a reminder that some responsibilities come with an unseen and deadly cost. These narratives are not mere fiction, they are echoes of real incidents, whispers from the dark corners of domesticity. They remind us that the comfort of home can be a fragile illusion, and that the trust we place in others and in the spaces they inhabit can be profoundly misplaced. The house-sitting horror stories serve as a powerful cautionary tale, urging us to look beyond the surface, to question the seemingly normal, and to always remember that when you're in someone else's home, you might not be alone, and the secrets you uncover might just be your last. The chilling reality of house-sitting horror stories lies in their insidious nature. They don't rely on fantastical monsters or supernatural phenomena, but rather on the violation of our most basic sense of security, the home. These are not tales of haunted houses in the traditional sense, but of houses that become stages for human malevolence, psychological torment, or unexplained phenomena that leave a lasting scar on those who experience them. The vulnerability of being in an unfamiliar space, responsible for someone else's sanctuary, amplifies the terror. Every creak, every shadow, every misplaced object takes on a sinister new meaning. The trust placed in the homeowners and the assumption of safety is brutally shattered, leaving the house-sitter not only traumatized, but often questioning their own sanity. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest horrors are not found in the dark woods or abandoned buildings, but within the seemingly safe confines of a stranger's home, where the line between reality and nightmare becomes terrifyingly blurred. These narratives, while disturbing, serve a purpose beyond mere entertainment. They are cautionary tales, echoing the primal fears of intrusion, isolation, and the unknown. They remind us that the most terrifying monsters often wear human faces or exist in the unseen corners of our minds. The house sitter, entrusted with the sanctity of a home, becomes a proxy for the audience, experiencing the gradual erosion of safety and the terrifying realization that some secrets are best left buried. The psychological impact is profound, leaving the victims forever altered, their sense of security irrevocably shattered. The stories are not just about what happened, but about the lingering dread, the constant vigilance, and the chilling knowledge that the comfort of home can, in an instant, become a cage of terror. They are a testament to the fact that true horror often lies not in the supernatural, but in the unsettling reality of human malevolence and the fragility of our perceived safety. Ultimately, these stories are a testament to the fact that horror doesn't always need a supernatural explanation. Sometimes, the most terrifying things are the ones that could happen to anyone, at any time, in any seemingly safe place. The house sitter, stepping into the shoes of another, inadvertently steps into their nightmares. And the chilling truth is, once you've seen what lurks beneath the surface of domestic tranquility, you can never truly feel safe again. The echoes of these real incidents serve as a stark warning. When you agree to house sit, you're not just taking care of a property. You're potentially opening yourself up to a reality far more disturbing than any fiction. So the next time you consider house-sitting, or even just staying in someone else's home, remember these tales. Remember Chloe, Ben, and Sarah. Remember that behind every locked door, every drawn curtain, every seemingly perfect facade, there might be a story waiting to unfold, a story that will change you forever. Because in the quiet, empty spaces of a stranger's home, the line between guest and victim can become terrifyingly thin, and the horrors that unfold are often the ones you never saw coming,